Howdy folks, Hellcorrex here, and welcome to Thoughts from the Intersphere, episode 61. And today we're going to be talking about that 40-ton mech, the Whitworth. Not a bad little guy, it's a good support mech. It's coming in here at a 4.64, which makes it a pretty decent, gets around pretty decently. Moves, jumps. Now, the armor isn't too bad. It's got 128 points of armor, so it's well armored, able to go toe-to-toe if need be. It has 10 heat sinks, which is kind of a detriment, sort of. And then it carries, which is the nice thing about this thing, has 2 LRM-10s with 1 ton of ammo each, one in the right torso and left torso. Then it carries around 3 medium lasers, 1 in each arm and 1 in the head. Now, then it has the jump jets, 2 in each leg. What do I like about the Whitworth is that it gets around pretty decently and it's able to move at a reasonable speed. It's the reason it carries all the weaponry it does is because it falls into the category of the slow medium mech. It's not an interceptor by any means. It's a follow-on mech, a support mech with those 2 LRMs, so it can do the indirect fire if it need be, direct fire if need be, and it works well in conjunction, like I said before, with the other, the Blackjack, is that it works well with Enforcers, Centurions, a lot of the 4.6 moving mechs, or the heavy mechs, mediums and heavies. It could even be tossed into a assault lance as a scout. Yeah, a Steiner scout. Think about that one. Especially if you're running around with a bunch of 3.5 movers. A 4.6 is like, wow, fast. But, a little humor off the side there. But, one thing I like about it is that, you can park it someplace near a wood line or up on a hill on a wood line someplace and just kind of rain fire down until the ammo bays are empty and then move in, go in for the kill. It's kind of like the same thing I like doing, like with I talked about the last week with the Blackjack. It's same category, is that once it's done closing the distance and emptying out its ammo bays with those LRMs, then it can go in and do a lot of good work with those 3 medium lasers. And with those 3 medium lasers, you can also run off a lot of the light scout mechs that might try to come in and cause havoc, because most of the time when you're sitting with those LRMs, they like to get right into your face, and with the LRMs you have all those minuses to hit, so typically they're not wanting to allow, you're not going to want the enemy get into your face. But with those medium lasers, you can run them off and give them something to think about, because any light mech getting hit with 3 medium lasers, they're going to be missing some armor someplace, and you're probably going to have some chances with some criticals. That's just the nice thing about it. So it can force your enemy to back away. Now, the other thing I like about it is that you can sit there and, like I said, park yourself on a hill, behind a hill for that matter, and start raining over the fire within directly if you have somebody to spot for you. So if you got a fast-moving scout that's out front doing the spotting for you, all right, that's great. And, then you're able to just hit here, hit there, back and forth. Now, one nice thing I like to do is with the Whitworth is that if you're in a city fight with the jump jets, you can displace. It's 4, so you can get over some moderate-sized buildings. So you can go from street to street if need be, get in behind somebody, and possibly give them some 3 medium lasers into the backside if necessary, and then a nice swift kick. Now, the only problem is with this mech is the heat. That's the biggest detriment to it. You only have 10 heat sinks. Now, which kind of gets mitigated, when you get later on, when we get into the 3050 era, when you can get some double heat sinks and stuff. But right now, with those 10 heat sinks, let's say you fire the LRMs, okay, that's 2 of them, that's 8 heat. And if you walk or run, you're not worrying about heat. Okay, not a problem. It's when you start doing any type of jumping action, then you're going to start going up in the heat scale. So if you, say, fire the 3 medium lasers and you jump 4, okay, so yeah, you're going to be going up to 13, so you're going to have 3 points of heat. You can do that for a turn, not a problem. But it's the second turn you do that, you're going to have some negatives, so you'll be up on the 6 heat on the heat scale, and you can be at -1. And that can be kind of a problem. Then that forces you to have to do a jump again to possibly get away, because you're going to be a 3-5 mover, and when you're moving at glacier speeds, that's the problem with the mechs like this, at this size. If you're starting to move like a glacier, and you're already moving, you're a 4-6 to begin with, so you're already slow. And if you're around anything that's got some good gunnery, you're going to be having your armor ripped off. So you want to try to watch your heat and get in, get out, and not cook yourself, not causing yourself any of those detriments to your movement, then firing. Because if you do that again, well, you do it a third time, you're going to be at 9. And next thing you know, you're going to be minuses to hit with that too. So yeah, that's not something you want to do. Now, if you want to fire your LRMs and jump at the same time, yeah, you can be up 2 on the heat scale if you jumped 4. But a lot of times, most of the time when I'm using this mech, I never really worry about having to run or use the jump jets. I'd say 75% of the time, because I'm just standing back with those LRMs and trying to empty out the bay before I get in close. And then by the time this guy is getting into the action, it's kind of the same way I run the Blackjack, is that by the time he's getting into close enough to where I'm going to start using those medium lasers, the ammo bays are pretty much empty, and it's up close and personal. You're knife fighting, you're going to be punching, kicking type thing. Now, when you do get in close, you're going to be kicking, plain and simple, because you're not going to not fire those medium lasers. And those are sitting in your arms, and you don't have those hand actuators, which is another problem with this thing, is that each one of them doesn't have a hand. And so if you get into those missions where you got to pick up something or anything of that nature, that could be a problem too. So that is a con when it comes to this mech. Yeah, it's not bad, it's not great, but you can get around that. And other than trying to find yourself a place to haul down and just park yourself into a heavy wood hex or behind a hill where you're able to use your LRMs to your best advantage, this is a mid-game to late-game type mech. Alright? You use it, you sit there, empty out those ammo bays, and then when the mid-game comes up, and when the heavies, or the heavy mediums, or something of that nature, have ripped off a lot of armor off a lot of the enemy mechs, then you start moving in as quick as possible, and then just start trying to get into the flanks, or just adding your firepower to taking down mechs. When you got a mech that can punch out 15 points of damage later in the game, that is a force multiplier in a lot of ways, especially if a mech that hasn't had any damage done to it and people kind of ignored it. Because yeah, this mech can do 20 points of damage if you roll the best with the on the chart with those LRMs, but typically you're not. It's going to be probably 12. You're going to be doing 6 points damage out of each launcher on an average. If you look at the law of averages when it comes to dice rolling, when you're sending out some LRM-10s. But other than that, it's a decent mech. I like using it. It has a way of finding its way into a lot of our games, especially when it comes to the battle value. It's under 1,000 points when it comes to battle value. Pretty close to 1,000. But, you know, and you get into your typical games of 10,000 point lance on lance, or especially if you get later into company on company type games, you know, this is a decent mech to bring. Now, I like using this in conjunction. It's like if you have a game where a Whitworth or a pair of Whitworths or Whitworths, trebuchets, and some dervishes are all bunched up, they make a pretty decent fire support lance. And they're all carrying those medium lasers, and you work them together in conjunction, and they can take down some medium mechs pretty quickly, you know, hitting them hard, and then they can go in and hit them with all those medium lasers and just tear them up, wreck face. So that's the way I like using these guys. Work them in conjunction with some other decent moving fire support mechs. And now the other ones I just like, the trebuchet and the dervish, you know, they are a little faster, but it's not too big of a problem, especially if you know that you're just going to be moving it into a position to do some fire support and then move in. But one problem with this, another con, is that, you know, being it's a 4.6, it can't displace as fast. Let's say you got trying to protect something in the backfield, and you got a fast mover, let's say a 35 ton like a Jenner or something that's moving, hauling around the flank. This guy's gonna have a hard time intercepting. Now his missiles can intercept it if you can see him, but you know, that's going to be one of the problems, is he'll get outstripped in distance really quick. So that's one. You have to pretty much set this guy up in the center of the board, in the back, so his arc of fire is able to be used to the best advantage, and then he can displace right or left and move to intercept if necessary. And if you see somebody that's trying to get around the backside and you got a couple turns to get, you can sort of cut them off, but you know, you have to be proactively thinking about what your opponent's going to be doing, especially if they're doing a scouting mission, and you got to think about how is the best way I can cut off my opponent with this slow moving mech. All right, think ahead, think a couple turns ahead, think about where they're going to go. So if you're a good scout player, think about where they're going to put their mechs, and then use this kind of mech, and you can intercept them, but it's just a little bit harder. All right, just make sure you're using those missiles to best advantage. All right, if you got any ways or things you like using with the Whitworth, let me know down below. Like and subscribe, and we'll hit you in the next one. Hellcracks out.